Thanks, Tom. Yeah. Okie dokes. Shell, have we got any notices?
Yes, a few. I'm just looking at who's in the room. So we welcome our new members. We've got new members from Ghana, new members from Botswana and Kenya, and soon Nigeria. So we are a very strong and exciting growing community. So welcome to you all. Just an announcement for the 6th of December, a very important year-end highlight is Sakadi. I think Sakadi's on the call with us today. Sakadi Payani and Bridget Samula will be doing the closeout, building bridges and breaking barriers for the year-end function. So that's really exciting. They're both, as you know, respective CEOs of EXA, the Engineering Council of South Africa, and the South African Institute of Civil Engineers. So that's going to be a really special closeout to WITBE. In the new year, we've also got some exciting speakers lined up. Thea Weeks, who's from MPA Mott. She's the ESG specialist, and she heads up the International Association for Public Partnerships. And she's also a past mentor of the Mandela Washington Fellowship. So she's going to be very interesting. And we've got a couple of very exciting attorneys lined up as well in the built environment. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. And then what I'd like to say, Liz, before we start, please make some notes. This is a very important and exciting presentation today. Make some notes of what really stands out for you. 1 or 2 points to share on the app and get the conversation going, because we'd like to see what are you learning from these. It's not something just to come and listen to, but what are you actually learning? What are you integrating into your life? And how is this making a difference? And then lastly, in the new year, I'm going to start with pairing women that are on the app with women across the UK and Europe. So if you're not active, you won't be eligible to be paired. So please, if you've got any challenges getting onto the app, let me or Louise know, and we'll get you sorted. And if you need some help and training on it, we'll help you with that as well. We've got a recording of that. So thanks, everyone. I'm very excited to have Ntombi. I'll hand over to Liz to do the formal introduction.
Thanks so much, Shell. There are 2 things I want to say before I go into introducing Ntombi. The first one is we had a bit of a discussion on the app about people's engagement in these sessions. And it was really interesting to see that one of the main things people hold back from getting into the conversation is that fear of asking the wrong question or an unnecessary question. And the response to that in many cases is, if you're asking the question, there are 10 other people who are going to be on the webinar who are also waiting to ask that question or wanting to ask that question. And as soon as you open that door, there's going to be engagement. So don't hold back. There is no such thing as a stupid question. We are at all levels. People engage with the content in all of these discussions at a very different level, and there's no such thing as a wrong question. So please just chuck in whilst you're listening. Pop things into the chat there. We use what's in the chat and the way people are relating to the content as the way of starting the Q&A at the end. So please do that. If something links with you, connects with you, if something provokes you, put it in the chat. Okay. Second thing, I recently attended a time management, or I watched a time management video. And one of the things that strikes me with pretty much every single one of the speakers we have is they are ridiculously efficient. And it connected with that TED talk, because it was about, if you want something done, give it to a busy person to do, because busy people prioritize what's important. We all have the same amount of hours in the day, but if I just start listing Dr. Ntombi Mhangwani's credentials and achievements, like last month, like the month before, it kind of blows you out of the water how much these people get done. So listening to the ones who are leading the way and really cracking it out is just such a privilege. Dr. Mhangwani is the Executive Head of Marketing for Vodacom Business, previously the Associate Director for Accenture Interactive and Women's Forum Lead for Accenture in Africa. She was a founding member of the Voices of Change movement. She featured on the Break the Ceiling, Touch the Sky 2022 list of Africa's most inspirational women in leadership. She's recognized by Accenture as an equality champion. She also previously won a Gender Mainstreaming Award Positive Role Model for C-Suite. She's an experienced EXCO member, board member, pension fund trustee, inclusion and diversity champion, Rotary International Rotarian. She's a Toastmaster winner, a TEDx speaker, and she has 24 years of journalistic marketing and communications experience under her belt. To add to that little list, she holds an MBA from Henley Business School. She has an honours degree in journalism and media studies from Rhodes, and she has completed her PhD in management of technology and innovation with a thesis that addresses the challenges of leadership of change in the fourth industrial revolution. And her topic today, are you relevant for the new digital world of work, I think is incredibly relevant for all of us. I don't know if anyone like me, faced with this overwhelming tidal wave of change and increasing speed and penetration of technology, we're all in for a great learning. And Ntombi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Liz. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate everyone who is on this call. Please let me know if you can see my slides.
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very excited to be speaking to the audience this afternoon. I think it's wonderful. When I was looking at your intro, you were talking about what women in the build environment stand for. And I love the comments around learning, collaboration, etc. And I absolutely agree with your question, your comment around there is no such thing as a stupid question. In fact, when I work with teams and I know there are young people or people who don't understand what I'm talking about, if they don't ask me a question, I have a serious problem with that, because that's the only way people are going to learn. So I encourage people to feel free to ask me questions. I'm in presentation mode at the moment, so I may not be able to see anything right now, but if somebody can give a shout out and I'll be able to, but it's also easier for people to maybe allow me to move to the end. But if there's something burning, I'm really fairly flexible. I'm more than happy to respond to it. It's just that I can't see hands, I can't see comments because I'm in presentation mode. So please just give me a heads up. Thank you very much. As Liz said, I have a PhD. I still believe I'm broken from my PhD, but it's one of the best things I could have ever done for myself. And I'm very proud of the ability that I had to have the focus and the discipline to actually deliver it. So why did I do a PhD? I joined an organization in 2014, and beginning 2015, I was working with my CEO at Accenture, who kept on talking about tech, was talking about Bitcoin, AI, all of these things. And I was like, what on earth is all of this? I can't work with this guy without understanding what he's talking about. And then he kept on making reference to a book titled Exponential Organizations by Salim Ismail. If you haven't read it, I recommend you read it. Exponential organizations, why some organizations are 10 times larger than yours. And I remember as I was reading this book, I would go back to the office the next day and I would say, wow, guys, you won't believe what happened in the book last night, as if I'm watching a movie. But what I loved about reading the book was discovering the power of technology, and in discovering how your Airbnbs, how your Amazons, how your Googles actually started becoming powerful organizations and surpassing those organizations that have been on the JSE for more than 100 years. I took a decision to say, right, I'm going to learn about this and I'm going to study about this. So I'll go into that, but just get to know a little bit about me at the moment. So I always tell people that I love my job, but I'm not my job. I have a life. And I always like to introduce myself as a human being, because often when people read our profiles, we sound like we're not human. And I want to let everybody know that whatever you hear about me, whatever you see today, if I can do it, you can do it. It's really that simple. There's nothing special about me. All I have is I have discipline, focus, and when I set my goals, I go for them. And that's the only thing. So who am I? I am indeed my father's daughter. In fact, my mom and dad used to call me the son in the family because my mom and dad have got 5 daughters, and I'm the youngest of the 5 daughters. So I am absolutely my father's child, and my father and I are very close. My sisters are my best friends. I come from a family where education is absolutely emphasized. In fact, when all of us finished school, my father started what was called the Mhangwani Wall of Fame. The only way one gets onto the Mhangwani Wall of Fame is if you have a degree. So without a degree, you don't get onto the Mhangwani Wall of Fame. And even when you've got your honors and your masters, my father will always ask the question, what are you doing next? That's to give you some context. And all of my sisters, we are strong, bold, confident women, and we are all executives as well. I'm also a very proud aunt. I have many nephews and nieces. I love this picture because I like them this size. Sometimes you wish you could keep them this size because now they challenge me a lot, but they call me Dr. Auntie Babes, and I'm absolutely that aunt that spoils everybody. And the way for you to grab my attention is food. I love my food. I've reduced my intake of wine, but I'm always happy to visit a glass of gin and tonic. And I believe in laughter, feeding my soul with laughter, and I believe in being happy. We're not going to focus a lot on this slide because it's really been mentioned in the intro. And I guess the one that I'm most proud of at the moment is an award that I received about a month ago, this year, where out of 97 finalists on 3 continents, I mean, 3 countries, it was from West Africa, North Africa, no, it wasn't North Africa, East Africa, West Africa, and Southern Africa. There were 97 entrants, and I made it to the top 5 finalists of R&B's Fearless Thinker Award. And I think I celebrate this award because when I look at all the work I do for women, inclusion, diversity, how I deliberately help companies build women's network, put in the correct policies, achieving this recognition is absolutely making it all worthwhile and the time that I do. So what are we talking about today? We're going to be talking about, are you relevant for the digital world that we live in? Yes, of course, when I started my PhD, it was focusing on the 4th Industrial Revolution. By the time I finished my PhD, I was also talking about the 5th and the 6th Industrial Revolution. So for those of you who are still trying to get to grips with the 4th Industrial Revolution, you need to understand we're already looking at the 5th and the 6th already. And so what I say is that the problem that organizations have is that they've been successful in the past by working a particular way. And a lot of people in organizations will say, we've always done it this way. It's always worked this way. So why change it? And my point of departure is to actually challenge that perception and that view. Not everything is bad and not everything needs to be given up, but absolutely you need to be able to unlearn, to relearn, and embrace change. However, you need to understand that as we go through this change, some people are going to be left behind because change is a very emotive subject. Some people go through the psychological, and in their mind, they work through, why must I do this? Do I need to do this? And unless organizations are able to convince employees, their teams, that this change benefits them, you will find a lot of people will not buy into the change as well. So when we talk about this technology, we talk about, yes, we need to upskill our employees. We need to make sure that they're constantly learning, constantly training. And we need to make sure that we're an agile organization. So what I chose to focus on for my PhD was looking at what is the 4th Industrial Revolution? What does it mean? How does it impact people, organizations, countries, economies? And what are these technologies that make up the 4th Industrial Revolution? After looking at the technologies that make up the 4th Industrial Revolution, I looked at how do people react to such fundamental change? The emotional impact of change on people. I then moved forward and I said, what type of leaders do we need, given we now understand what the fourth industrial revolution is, how it impacts people, companies, organizations, economies? You need a new type of leader that is relevant for the now, a leader that understands what these technologies are, and a leader that can actually build and groom teams working and embracing these technologies. I then looked at leadership theories going all the way back into the 1800s to say, what were some of the best leadership theories over the decades? And given what we know about this digital world we are living in and what is required for it, I looked at all the different leadership theories and I pulled from each theory the elements that are relevant for the digital world that we are living in now. What I will be taking you through are the roles that I came up with. I built a framework that says if you are a leader managing and leading teams in the fourth, fifth, or sixth industrial revolution, these are the roles you need to embrace, and these are the behaviors that you need to be showing up as a leader. So if you look at what I said, I built a framework that came up with 13 roles. However, after coming up with the 13 roles, I took them back to an organization and I tested them with Accenture. I took them back to Accenture and I went to the leaders and I said, based on what I've read, based on all the theory, based on the findings from my literature review, I have discovered that these are the 13 leadership roles that leaders need to embrace. And do you, as leaders in Accenture, agree with the 13 roles that I've come up with? They looked at the 13 roles and they added 2 more. So I'm going to take you through the 13 that I initially discovered, and then I'll take you through the others that they added. And later on, I will take you through the top 5 behaviors that actually accompany each role. In case somebody doesn't understand, but what is this role? How do you define it? What does it mean? I'll be able to take you through that as well. So the 13 roles I came up with. If you want to be a relevant leader working in this fourth or fifth or 50th or sixth industrial revolution, you need to be an innovator. And you know, guys, I'm going to be telling you some content that you probably know about, you've heard of, but I need you to understand that often we know these things, but we don't apply them. And this is where I want to challenge people to truly look at, if you keep hearing the same thing over and over again, what are you doing about it? So you need to be an innovator. Role number 2, you need to be a collaborator. We all know what an innovator is, looking at new ways of doing things, actually challenging the status quo, also looking at how can we improve using the power of the new technology. Excuse me. Thank you. Collaborator is about collaborating across teams. I think often people say it's obvious we need to collaborate, but you would be surprised how many people are still working in organizations trying to have their own little kingdom, trying to do things their own way, worried about, no, this person's going to take over my job, or this one's going to be better than me. I don't want to collaborate. Do not take it for granted that people collaborate easily. Some people still want to keep the old ways of working as well. Systems thinker. Systems thinker means you're not just looking at what you are immediately working on, but you are actually able to connect the dots to say, if I am working on this and the results are positive or negative, what is the implication on the broader organization? Who are the other stakeholders that I need to be collaborating with, and be able to see the entire system and be able to connect the dots, so that as you work, you're actually making sure that as you touch one area, you're also handling the implications of another area as well. The fourth role was customer experience designer. This was one I particularly loved because I kept on hearing a lot about the experience economy. And I was, what is this experience economy? I was attending an SAP conference and everybody was talking about the experience economy. I read about it. It's a beautiful thing. And you will learn that customers are willing to pay more for the experience. It's no longer just about the product or the service. It's about how you made them feel. What are the memorable feelings, thoughts, experiences that came with buying that particular product? You will also find that places like Dubai actually are successful because they deliver memorable experiences. In the middle of the desert, you can go and ski in Dubai. Those are some of the experiences when we're talking about the experience economy, where it's no longer just about the customer being king, the customer's always right, or about us telling customers what is best for them. They will look at how a company delivers for them and the experience they want for them to choose your products and services as well. The fifth role I looked at was the change director. The truth is, leaders need to be able to manage change because not only are they managing themselves, but they are managing a team that doesn't know how to embrace this change. So they need to be able to know how to take their teams through the process of change, through the process of unlearning to relearn, and actually help them to adapt to the change. And also be able to say, we now have to have the uncomfortable conversation to say, yes, you can be part of this change, or no, you can't be part of this change. The sixth role was ambiguity, volatility, and agility mentor. And what this really talks about is that there is a lot of ambiguity that comes with this technology. So if you are a person who believes in only black and white, you need to somehow shift that perspective. You need to understand that there's a lot of gray that we live with. There's a lot of uncertainty that you're going to be managing and maneuvering. There's a lot of volatility that will also disrupt you. This is what this technology does as well. And you need to be agile as a person and as an organization to be able to respond and use this technology to benefit you. The seventh role is about being a virtual project team manager. And this is about managing teams virtually. So the insistence of you saying people have to be at work 8 to 5 and they can't work from home, you're going to find that young people will not choose to work for your organizations. A lot of them are open to hybrid, but if you say it's absolutely physically, of course, in certain environments, people have to be physically there, particularly in the build environment. But you also need to understand where there's an opportunity to work remotely, you need to be able to provide that access because this is what people coming into organizations are looking for as well. The eighth role is data analyst and manager. People say data is the new gold. But data is only the new gold if you know how to use it and you paint the right picture and you deliver the required results. So the data alone is nothing. It's what you do with the data to be able to make decisions that are based off facts and data as well. Number 9, it's the technology, ethics, and values manager. People need to understand that this technology also has its biases. The technology can also be created by human beings. Some apps are created by human beings who have biases. So if somebody creates an app, you need to, as you play with it, as you experiment with it, as you try it out, you need to be able to say, is this app resonating with my value system, or do I feel actually it is somewhat discriminatory? Do not be naive to say all technology is great, all of it is perfect. You need to be able to evaluate if the ethics and the values are aligned to you and your organization. Leaders today also need to be problem solvers. Sure, we all understand that. Lifelong learning facilitators, empowering leaders, inspiring leaders, because you're not always with your team, so you need to be able to inspire them to work from wherever they are. And most important, my last one was that leaders need to be EQ coaches, emotionally intelligent people who are able to be emotional, intelligent coaches as well. So these are the 13 roles I came up with in my framework. When I tested these roles with the leadership at Accenture, they came back and they made a few changes. So the customer experience designer was renamed customer experience director. Now that shows you the importance based on the work they do and based on the changes they are seeing with their clients around the importance of customer experience as well. The change master role was renamed to change director. Once again, emphasis on the fact that you need to be able to manage, implement, and also you make sure your team is embracing change as well, hence why it was changed to director. The role of data analyst and manager was renamed to data interpretation and application manager, and the definition was also adjusted as well. The role of problem solver was renamed to problem solving facilitator, and the definition was also adjusted. Now, this is important because sometimes organizations believe, and it happens a lot in the consulting space, where people feel when we bring in consultants, they must have all the answers. No. The best way for organizations to win is to work through the process of design thinking and to be able to solve together, working through all the possible solutions versus you expecting your consultants to come with all the solutions as well. You need to be part of the problem solving so that you are actually buying it in, marinating yourselves in, and making sure that your teams understand it as well. The name of the empowering leader was retained, however, the definition was adjusted, and the name of the EQ coach was retained, but the definition was adjusted as well. So I'm now going to go into the two which were also added. I told you that I came up with 13 roles in the framework, but then the leaders at Accenture said, you also need, in the digital world that we live in, we need leaders who are going to be authentic storytellers. The power of storytelling delivers a message and captures your audience without people necessarily being frustrated about spreadsheets, Excel, etc. The power of storytelling is what really captures the imaginations of many leaders sitting around the decision-making table. And the last one that they added was entrepreneur leader, creating an entrepreneurial culture where motivated employees are allowed to challenge paradigms and take initiative to proactively explore new business opportunities. And this is what a lot of organizations struggle with, where employees challenge paradigms, take initiative, and proactively explore new opportunities. I'm just sharing with you what my findings were. Whether people choose to embrace it or not is something else. In fact, I made this presentation to my own organization and people were like, why are we not using this in our own organization? And people would assume that a large organization such as mine would be where everybody's at the tip of innovation, at the tip of collaboration, at the tip of actually embracing new paradigms. But I'm telling you now, a lot of organizations are struggling with this change. Do not take it for granted that this is in place in many organizations, because it is not. So, like I said, for each role that I came up with, we started with 13, we went to 15, and for each role, I gave it a definition, and then I had a long list of the typical behaviors that actually accompany each of the roles. My focus right now will be on the top 5, because if I had to cover every single behavior, we wouldn't finish. But if anybody would like a copy of the leadership framework with the name of the role, the definition, and all the behaviors, I'm more than happy to share that with everybody. So with the innovator role, we can see what the definition was, right? And then it says the typical behaviors is that people who are innovators build a culture that encourages innovation. Culture is critical. You cannot be a sustainable, future relevant leader without focusing on culture. So innovators also create a shared and compelling vision for people to embrace the innovation. They also communicate the person and the reason why we need to be innovating. They also motivate and inspire teams to find new ways of working, and they also capitalize on individual strength. So in other words, if Tracy is good at this, let Tracy focus on that. Don't go and give Tracy something that she doesn't like, is not strong at. Work using people's strength. That is how the top performing teams thrive, when they look at the strength of the individuals and they work with that, because those various strengths coming together is what makes a very strong team. So we obviously have the collaborator, we have the definition, and the behaviors break down silos and promote trust, encouraging the sharing of ideas and collaboration across diversity and boundaries. And I'm sure as I'm showing you guys this, and as you read it, and as you hear me, some of you are going to say, yes, my organization does that. But others are going to say, oh my God, I wish my organization could get this. They are so not there. So the collaborator also builds and leverages relationships and networks in the organization. They create an environment of psychological safety where people feel they can speak up, they can challenge, they can actually look at different paradigms as well. They can also engage in open, transparent, two-way communication. And there's clarity in terms of what the expectations are when it comes to their roles, and they are clear on how they will be measured. This, ladies and gentlemen, also speaks to transformational leadership. The systems thinker, once again, we have the definition, but the systems thinker looks holistically at the bigger picture. They collect data and observations, and they make decisions based on this data. They identify, analyze, and synthesize the interrelatedness of the critical elements in the system. They recognize the patterns, and they identify how to leverage these patterns to be profitable as well. The customer experience director. I'm going to read this particular definition. The customer experience director is a servant leader who promotes a team environment, encouraging employees to design exciting products and create memorable customer experiences that capture the imagination and make a pleasant and rational emotional impact on customers. When you leave customers with that pleasant emotional impact, they are loyal to you for life. And the behaviors that come with this particular role is that the leader is able to direct employees to utilize technology in order to design these experiences that have an emotional connection with customers. They also are able to guide employees to connect with the emotional impact that they have on customers. They empower all employees to engage in a memorable way in order to create that exciting experience. And they guide employees to package and present products in a way that grabs the customer's attention as well. And they serve as a trusted advisor to the customer. When you actually deliver experiences that delight customers, customers will trust you, and they will know that when they ask you, you will give them the right advice. That isn't necessarily about making money, but making the customer happy, thereby building loyalty as well. The change director challenges new paradigms, communicates the reason for the change, compiles a change management plan so that the people know these are the steps, these are the stages we need to go through as well. The change director also makes sure that people understand the reasons and also helps them manage their emotions, because change is emotional. Some people battle with it, so we need to help them manage and also control their emotions. And the change director also supports employees in the various phases of change, be it denial, resistance, exploration, promotion of change, all the changes. But the leader who can get this right will watch their team unlearn, to relearn, and grow exponentially to be able to be relevant and sustainable for the future. Ambiguity, volatility, and agility mentor. This is the one where I said life is full of gray, and you need to understand and embrace the gray. And let me be honest, I'm one of those leaders who was saying, I'm very black and white, it's either right or it's wrong. And I had to, in working with my coach, learn that actually there's a lot of ambiguity in life, there's a lot of gray, and you need to embrace it. So the ambiguity, volatility, and agility mentor understands uncertainty and insecurity that is created by this new technology and helps their team embrace it despite all this uncertainty. They coach their teams to deal with all the ambiguity. They direct employees to be able to cope with the new situations they'll be faced with. They mentor employees to distinguish between things they can control and those variables they cannot control, rather than somebody stuck in a rut because they're insisting it's either black or white. And also, the sustainable relevant manager will coach employees to accept uncontrollable variables. Our virtual team manager, we have our definition and the behaviors that this person and this leader needs to show up as is they identify, source, and contract virtual teams. So sometimes you're going to hire people, they live in another country, they've got the best skill, you've got to manage them, you've got to be able to inspire them, but you need to make them feel like they are part of a team, beside the fact that they are not working physically in the same environment as well. It also says this leader can contact virtual team members for specific projects, roles, deliverables, and they're not in the same location. They are also able to deliver and unpack the common goals and the schedules to be met in collaboration with other members. And they also make sure that they're able to motivate and inspire people, despite the fact that they are working virtually in remote settings as well. And do not take it for granted, once again, that everybody is comfortable with managing virtual teams. Some leaders are not. And this is when you need to be able to distinguish, is my leader a leader or a manager? Because there's a very big difference between leaders and managers.
Ntombi,
So
I'm going to break in there.
Yes.
Can I just break in 2
Yes.
secs? If we want to leave about 10 minutes for Q&A, you have about 6 minutes left. So I don't know if you want to jump over any of the ones that you've got between here and the last two, or feel free, just giving you a time alert. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Elizabeth. I appreciate it. So the data interpretation and application, guys, so now that I've got 6 minutes, I'm going to just touch on the ones that I think are important, because I did give some sort of a definition in the beginning. And really what I wanted you to see are the behaviors that are accompanying each of the models as well. So maybe let me focus on the ones that I think are critical and may be clear, like the technology, ethics, and values manager. The behaviors. First of all, let's look at the definition. A leader is responsible for examining and ensuring rapid technology who continues to drive technological solutions to share and create a prosperous future for all without discriminating. Once again, like I said, you need to understand that not all technology is for good. Some can be used for bad, and you need to make sure that you understand the biases that come with that technology as well. The problem-solving facilitator, I think a lot of us are understanding the definition there. And really, at the end of the day, it's about facilitating and identifying and analyzing pros and cons, and not just doing that alone as a leader, but working with your teams to be able to do that. Lifelong learning and development facilitator. I'm sure a lot of you are so tired of this. Everybody's telling you, no, we're going to be learning for the rest of our lives. And you're thinking, I'm tired. I've been studying forever. I'd really like to take a break. But this isn't about going around and collecting another degree and another degree. It's about saying you need to understand what technology impacts your role, your environment, and how are you reading and unlearning to relearn to make sure that you remain relevant, and how are you working with leaders that help you remain relevant as well. Number 13, the empowering leader. I think the definition is fairly simple for us to understand. And also the empowering leader is also that person who is comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations as well, who's able to give feedback, and is also able to give you the resources you require to be able to deliver on your job. Emotional intelligence. I always tell people when they say to me, "Don't be, you're a different kind of leader. You seem like a really good leader. People love working with you. Everybody wants to join your team." EQ. That's my secret ingredient, EQ. And having taken time out to work with the coach for the past 11 years to make sure I improve myself, I focus on my self-development. And that EQ is understanding that the way I manage Marlies is not the way I manage John. And how do I get the best out of them, given they are different personalities as well? We've spoken about storytelling, and I gave earlier on the importance and the power of storytelling when you're doing presentations. Don't just go in there and rattle off the slides. Use the power of storytelling to deliver your message. And then we spoke about entrepreneurial leaders, people who are in organizations and are focusing on running the organization as if it was their own organization, looking at new ways to do things, challenging the paradigm, and constantly saying, if this was my organization, what is the best decision I need to make for my organization? So these are the 15 that I've actually had in terms of the leadership framework that I built. But if I was to give any leadership advice to anybody on this call, whether you're an experienced leader, whether you're a junior, an analyst, or a manager, at some point in time, you're going to suffer from imposter syndrome. It happens to some of the best leaders in the world. Presidents, executives, CEOs, I assure you, everybody at some point is hit by a couple of seconds of imposter syndrome. I always say, do not allow yourself more than 17 seconds of imposter syndrome. And that's because after 17 seconds, if you have not been able to yank yourself out of that self-destructive, self-non-belief thing that you are working through, it will stick. But under 17 seconds, you'll be all right. So when imposter syndrome hits you, you need to manage it, not it managing you. But when it happens, understand that everybody gets it, but it's about you managing it. If you are blessed, you need to be a blessing to others. Emotional intelligence, like I said, is my secret as a leader. And I also say, take risks, ask questions, even if it's a stupid questions. I mean, the worst anybody can say is no. And the last time I checked, nobody dies when they say no to you. And if somebody took a chance in you, decided to invest in you, got you a coach, got you mentors, gave you special projects to work on, you are bound and you are duty bound to do the same. You need to lift as you rise. And sometimes it's okay to just listen. You don't always have to speak and you don't always have to have answers. Just listen. You must always take responsibility for your actions. The buck stops with you. Stop making excuses. Just take responsibility for your actions. Be a person who chooses to live in the now. Be present. Stop deferring your goals and actions and say, I'll do it. Just do it. Act now. I choose to be happy every day. And I'm suggesting that you do the same, because nobody steals your joy when you choose your happiness as well. I suggest that people greet every new day with a forgiving spirit and forgive yourself first, because you are going to make mistakes, and be persistent and consistent without exception. And Elizabeth and Michelle, this is my presentation. Thank
Well
you.
done, Ntombi. Thank you so much for that. One of the things that resonates with me so much here is it's not just theory. Those behaviors, when you're turning values into action, we always go through this exercise of, okay, so what does that look like when it shows up in the workplace? And it's such a lovely, practical way of looking at, am I doing these things in order to be that characteristic? which is so incredibly helpful. I haven't got a lot in the chat, but if anybody would like to ask Ntombi a question, please just put your hand up and we'll come to you. Anybody want to make an observation or ask a question? Please do.
I'm trying to keep up with all the comments. I'm going to have to read them later.
Oh no, lots going on there. I have to say, I've been pretty chatty, I'm afraid.
I'm happy to answer.
The other thing that struck me was a lot of these things work together. So the addition of storytelling was really interesting, because data analysis and data interpretation really only comes to wrap story people emotionally that they can engage with.
We lost you there, Liz.
Yeah, I said the storytelling aspect, you can only, data and information only becomes really effective when you can wrap a story around it that allows the information to become something that people resonate with emotionally, because emotions drive action. Intellect doesn't drive action. Information doesn't drive action. Emotion drives action. And storytelling is what brings the emotion.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things leaders need to do more of is allow themselves to be vulnerable. I tell stories of really bad situations I've been in where I got burned and I it the hard way. But it's important to do that because, number one, I think vulnerability is a strength in a leader. Number two, it humanizes you, because already people who are looking up at you are assuming, no, they must have lived an easy life. They got it easy. They don't know how your journey to the top was. So when you use storytelling to tell stories, people are like, oh my goodness, I would have never thought that happened to you. There's power in storytelling, Elizabeth.
It's a great power also in that whole, the concept of just listening. I mean, as a manager and a leader myself, I became powerfully aware of the fact that every single member of your team brings a story. And unless you take the time to make the space and listen to them, you'll never know what those stories are. But those stories are absolutely riveting. They really are riveting. Every single person you're working with brings their own history with them, and it's so interesting. Other commentary?
Celeste says, I would love a full copy of the document, please.
I think you can take that as a given across the board, Ntombi. I think we you know, there's just a standard ask, please could we have that? We would love to post it up in the app.
So what I will do is I'll be able to also share with you the Word document that's got all the behaviors as well. So I'll send, you've got the presentation and you can use the other document as well.
That would be fabulous. Thank you. Can I ask one question? One of the things that strikes me, Rose will come straight to you afterwards. In a lot of those characteristics, you talk about challenging the status quo. Yeah. And if there's one thing that I'm conscious of, it's in many, many organizations, challenging the status quo is difficult, hits resistance, and is not necessarily well received, particularly depending on where you are in the organization. What kind of wisdom or what kind of insights do you have to offer around that?
I think, Liz, you need to understand what I mean when I talk about challenging status quo. Challenging the status quo can go into the leadership and saying, well, I disagree, and you would then have an argument with people. And that's not necessarily the smart way to go. And that's not going to deliver any results. Challenging the status quo for me is about looking at your role in your little nook, in your little corner, and deciding, why are we still doing this thing the same way when actually there are better ways to do it? So it doesn't have to be big challenges. It can be challenges within your own role where you are saying, I'm going to actually try a new template. I'm going to innovate. I'm going to use a new way of doing this. I'm actually going to try this new app that will actually allow me to track my return on investment as well. That is what I mean when I talk about challenging the status quo. Of course, it can be big. Depending on what level you are at, you will know that I can challenge this or I can't challenge this. That's why we also talk about focusing on your areas of influence and understanding that there are some things that you'll be able to argue for and win, and there's some things that you're going to be arguing for and not win as well. But it's about saying, if they've got new ideas, then actually put them forward, and do not identify the word and the statement of challenging the status quo as a negative. Challenging the status quo could actually equate to innovating as well.
That's great. Thank you very much. Rose, do you want to ask a question?
It's not so much a question. It's more of a comment. I really appreciate how you've taken everything that you've just said and made it so simple, so much so that someone who is running a small business like myself can actually take it in and relate to it and be able to take it back and, you know, apply some of the things that I've learned here today. So I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. I see you wrote the comment about I can't believe we get access to this type of content for
Yeah,
free.
because it sounds like something that you would pay to go and listen to, you know, it's such powerful information.
I don't charge for these things. I've never charged for these things.
Well,
Yes,
isn't that wonderful that we have generous spirits like Ntombi? Because as you know, WITBE is free to all women across Africa, and everyone that we've approached, the generosity of the women and the speakers we've had has been exceptional. So it will continue to be so because we all need to give back. And as Ntombi said, you know, if you're blessed, you can give your blessings.
Yes, thank you so much. And sorry, Shelley, I have to smile. I'm looking at Lindsay smiling because she's thinking she connected us together, right? So
that's right.
I love the look on her face, and now she's like, "Oh my gosh."
She couldn't miss it.
Would anybody else like to sneak in under the bar? We're very close to our time. If anybody else has a comment, an observation, a question they'd like to ask Ntombi before we let her go.
And then we'd like a group photo, please, if we can
yes,
have.
Please start putting your screens on.
We'd like to set a record for switching your cameras on, please.
Great. We've got Takalani and her car. We've got
Mangeli.
Yeah.
Louise.
We also have a mail on the floor.
Marshani.
We have
Willem.
Willem.
Let's get cameras on.
Willem, next to you on camera.
We have the occasional male champion in here as well. Hey, Willem.
Tom, where's your camera? Switch on. Let's get a nice
let's cram the screen.
I'm taking the photo.
Yes. So am I.
Cool.
There we go.
Folks.
Look at that.
Remember, when you're back in your app, to please just go and put your observations in, chuck your comments, your questions, your insights, put them in the app, start a conversation. What about this resonated? Which of those 15 is something that you can personally take on that you either resonate with already, that's something you know you do and you're strong at, or which of those presents a challenge to you? Which of those things is something you want to try? Have that conversation. Start that conversation in your domain of influence, and let's play it out from there. We have the opportunity to change the world from our own little corner of it.
Super. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, everyone. And if you do have any problems with the app, please email Louise or myself, and we'll get you sorted out quickly. Many thanks, Ntombi. That was absolutely wonderful, and everything that we looked forward to, it was even better. Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody, and see you on the other side.
Thank you for the invitation. Cheers, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Shell, will you stay on with me?